Hey, friend, I have a question for you. Have you ever looked at your own behavior and thought, what is wrong with me? Maybe you answered a text you promised yourself you wouldn't answer. Maybe you went back to a relationship you swore you were done with. Maybe you apologized again for something that wasn't even your fault. Maybe you said yes when every part of you wanted to say no. Or maybe, and this one is my personal favorite, you spent 2 hours overthinking a conversation that the other person probably forgot about 5 minutes later. Raise your hand if you have ever replayed a conversation in the shower, then replayed it in the car, then replayed it while you were falling asleep, only to wake up and replay it one more time. Welcome. You're amongst friends. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite quotes. It's a quote that I think has inspired many people. A quote that's on coffee mugs, Instagram captions, graduation speeches, vision boards, Pinterest, probably somebody's living room wall. Maya Angelou famously said, "When you know better, you do better." And before anybody get nervous, no, I'm not here to argue with Maya Angelou. I'm not that bold. I think that she is absolutely right. But as a trauma therapist, as someone who spends every day helping people understand attachment wounds and relational trauma, I think there's another sentence that comes after that quote, a sentence we don't talk about enough, because here's what I've learned after sitting across from hundreds of people over the years. Knowing better and doing better are not always roommates. Sometimes they don't even know each other. Because if knowing automatically changed your behavior, we wouldn't still text people who drain us. We wouldn't keep ending up in relationships that look different but somehow feel exactly the same. We wouldn't keep people pleasing. We wouldn't keep over explaining. We wouldn't keep abandoning ourselves to keep someone else comfortable. And honestly, therapists would be unemployed. We done worked ourselves out of a job. Because let's be honest, have you ever had a client say, "I know he's not good for me. I know I deserve better. I know I shouldn't answer. I know this relationship isn't healthy." And then 2 weeks later, they're sitting back in your office saying, "So, funny story," right? You already know where the story is going. But here's the thing, we laugh because we've all been there. Maybe not with relationships. Maybe it's boundaries. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's perfectionism. Maybe it's anxiety. Or maybe it's procrastination. We all have something where our brain says one thing and our behavior says another. So the question isn't, why don't I know better? The question is, if I already know, why can't I seem to do differently? And that's where attachment enters the conversation. Knowing better isn't the same as feeling safe. Here's something I wish more people understood. Your brain learns through information. Your nervous system learns through experiences. I'm going to say that one more time because that's really the entire episode. Your brain learns through information. Your nervous system learns through experience. Those are two completely different teachers. Think about it. You can read every relationship book that ever has been written. Listen to every podcast, go to therapy, follow every therapist on Instagram, screenshot every quote, save every TikTok. You can know that you deserve healthy love, that you should communicate, that you should have boundaries, that you don't have to earn love. You can know all of that. And then someone sends you a text that says, "Can we talk?" And suddenly, your body forgets every podcast you ever listened to. Your palms start sweating, your stomach drops, your chest tightens, and your mind starts to write a whole Netflix documentary. And now you're scrolling back through text messages like you're preparing evidence for court. Ladies, we deserve financial compensation for the emotional investigation we've conducted based on absolutely no evidence. But that's what attachment wounds do. They convince us that uncertainty is an emergency. Your brain knows better, but your body knows first. And this is probably one of the biggest misconceptions I see online. People say things like, if she keeps choosing unhealthy relationships, she must not have learned her lesson. Or, if he keeps going back, obviously he doesn't know his worth. Maybe, but maybe that's not the whole story. Because your body reacts milliseconds before your thinking brain catches up. Your nervous system isn't just sitting there like, let's carefully evaluate the situation. No, your nervous system is asking one question: am I safe? Not, is this logical? Not, is this healthy? Not, is this emotionally mature? It's just asking one question: am I safe? And here's where relational trauma changes everything. Sometimes safe doesn't actually feel safe. Sometimes safe feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels dangerous. So think about that. If chaos was familiar, peace can feel suspicious. If criticism feels familiar, kindness can feel uncomfortable. And if inconsistency was familiar, then consistency can actually make you anxious. And it's not because it's wrong, it's because it's new. And our nervous system often prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. Woo! Can we sit there for a second? Because that's uncomfortable, but it's also incredibly freeing. Because maybe you're not sabotaging yourself. Maybe your nervous system is protecting you using an outdated map. And an outdated map still makes sense if nobody ever gave you a new one. So let me tell you a little bit about you. Whenever I talk about attachment, I want you to picture a little version of yourself. 5-year-old, maybe 7, maybe even 10. She didn't have language like anxious attachment, relational trauma, nervous system dysregulation. She wasn't reading psychology books. She was simply asking, what do I have to do to stay connected? Children are brilliant observers. They don't just learn what people say, they learn what relationships feel like. Maybe little you learned, if I stay quiet, people stay. Maybe you learned, if I don't have needs, I won't be a burden. Or maybe you learned, if I make everyone happy, they won't leave. Or maybe you learned, if I do everything perfectly, I'll finally feel chosen. But here's the heartbreaking part. Those weren't personality traits. Those were survival strategies. And survival strategies don't disappear just because you turned 35. They grow up with you. They put on business casual. They get master's degrees. They become wives, mothers, leaders, therapists, business owners. And they still whisper the same message they've been whispering since childhood. Do whatever you have to do to keep connection. The problem with that, though, is what protected you then may be exhausting you now. And if you ever wondered why you keep doing something you know isn't serving you, maybe it's because the behavior was never about ignorance. Maybe it was always about protection. I want to show you why every behavior, even the ones you're frustrated with, is trying to solve a problem your nervous system believes still exists. And once you understand that, you stop asking, what is wrong with me? And you start asking, what is the behavior trying to protect me from? That question changes everything. Because here's something I've learned after years of sitting in the therapy room. Most behaviors don't start as problems. They start as solutions. Let me say that again. Most behaviors don't start as problems. They start as solutions. The problem is sometimes we keep using our old solution for a problem that no longer exists. It's like showing up to a beautiful sunny day wearing a winter coat because 20 years ago you got caught in a snowstorm. The coat made sense then, but now you're overheating. And a lot of us are emotionally overheating because we're wearing survival strategies that no longer fit the life that we're trying to build. So let's talk about people pleasing. Can I lovingly call out my recovering people pleasers? You know who you are. The ones who say, it's fine, it's okay, I don't care, while internally writing a resignation letter from the relationship. People pleasing gets painted as being too nice, but I don't think it's about being nice. I think it's about being safe, because somewhere along the way, many people learn that conflict costs connection. So if conflict caused connections, what do? You become agreeable, you become accommodating, you become low maintenance. You become that person who says, we can do whatever you want until one day you don't even know what you want to do anymore. And here's the tricky part, people praise you for that. She's so easygoing, she's so selfless, she's always there for everyone. Meanwhile, you're exhausted because you've become fluent in everyone else's needs and forgotten your own language. And that's not kindness, that's survival. Now let's talk about over explaining. Because, whew, this one has personally attacked all of us at some point. Have you ever sent a text that could have been one sentence, but somehow became 6 paragraphs? Somebody asked, hey, why are you late? And instead of saying traffic, because that's what it was, you write, well, I left on time, but then there was construction and I had to stop for gas because I forgot yesterday. And then I saw an accident and I promised I wasn't trying to waste your time. Girl, the question was, why were you late? Not, please submit your doctoral dissertation. Now, here's a deeper question. Why? Why do some people feel the need to provide every detail? Because many attachment wounds are built around one painful belief. If people misunderstand me, I'll lose connection. So over explaining isn't really about communication, it's about preventing rejection. You're trying to make your behavior so understandable that nobody can be upset with you. But here's what healing teaches us. You can explain yourself perfectly, and someone can still misunderstand you. You can tell the truth, and someone still disagrees. You can have the best intentions, and someone will still not like your decision, and that's okay. Because healing isn't learning how to control people's reactions. Healing is learning to tolerate them. Now, can we have a family meeting with our strong friends? You know the ones. I got it. I'll figure it out. I don't need anybody. I'll just do it myself. Everybody clap for the strong friends because she's been carrying the whole group project since 3rd grade. Now, here's what I want us to consider. What if hyperindependence isn't confidence? What if it's grief? What if it's disappointment? What if it's the result of asking for help and nobody coming? Or worse, somebody making you feel guilty for needing them. So eventually you stop asking. And it's not because you don't have needs, because you've learned not to expect them to be met. And that's different. There's a quote I often tell clients. Hyperindependence is often dependence that lost hope. Think about that. Because many people who say, I don't need anyone, actually mean, I don't believe anyone will be there. And that's an attachment wound. That's not a personality trait. Moving on to avoidance. Now let's check in with our avoidant listeners. Don't worry, I see y'all all. Y'all probably thinking this episode is getting a little too emotionally intense. And you may be a little bit right. But you may even be folding laundry while pretending none of this applies to you. And here's what I want you to know. Avoidance isn't the absence of emotion. It's often the fear of emotion. Because maybe growing up, nobody helped you process feelings. Maybe emotions were ignored, dismissed, punished, or even mocked. So you learned, handle it yourself, don't cry, don't need anyone, stay busy, stay productive, stay logical. And now people think, wow, they're so put together, they're so calm. And meanwhile, your nervous system is screaming, just very quietly though. Because avoidance isn't always emotional coldness. Sometimes it's emotional loneliness. Now, for my anxious people, that anxious side for a minute, let's get there. This is the part of you that says, I just need reassurance. Then 5 minutes later, I need reassurance about the reassurance, right? Anxious attachment often develops in environments where love felt inconsistent. Sometimes people showed up, sometimes they didn't, sometimes the affection was available, sometimes it wasn't. So your nervous system became incredibly skilled at monitoring relationships. You notice change in tone, energy, facial expressions, response times. You can probably qualify for the FBI with all the investigative skills that you developed. But the problem, your nervous system mistakes uncertainty for danger. So even healthy pauses feel threatening. And again, not because you're broken, but because your body learned inconsistency hurts. And here's what every one of these behaviors have in common: people pleasing, over explaining, hyper independence, avoidance, anxiety, perfection, control, different behaviors. Same question underneath. And that question is, will I still be loved if I stop protecting myself? That's the real question, because every protector has one job: keep you connected, keep you safe, keep you from feeling the pain you've already survived once. And honestly, our protectors deserve some compassion because they work really, really hard. They got us here. They just don't know the environment has changed. They're like that smoke detector that goes off every single time you make toast. It's annoying, but it's not trying to ruin your breakfast. It's trying to prevent a fire. The problem is, it can't tell the difference between toast and danger. And sometimes our nervous systems can't either. And that's why knowing better isn't always enough, because your protectors don't respond to information. They respond to experience. They respond to repetition. They respond to safety. And in the final part of this episode, we're going to talk about how we're actually teach our nervous system that the fire is over. Because healing isn't getting rid of your protectors. It's helping them to realize that they don't have to work overtime anymore. And that changes everything. So, we've talked about behaviors. We talked about protectors. We've talked about why your brain can know something while your body's still living by a completely different set of rules. And now the question becomes, so how do I actually change? Because let's be honest, if you've ever healed from anything, you know that insight feels amazing for about 24 hours. That's it. And then you leave therapy thinking, I get it now. You listen to the podcast, you journal, you cry, you screenshot quotes, you send them to your best friend, you buy another self-help book. You feel like you cracked the code. And then Tuesday happens. Your partner forgets to text you. Your boss sends an email that starts with, "Can we talk?" Your mom says something passive aggressive. And your friend leaves you on red. And suddenly, your nervous system says, oh, we're doing this again. Anybody else? Because healing has a funny way of humbling us. One minute, you're quoting boundaries. The next minute, you're explaining yourself to someone who didn't even ask for an explanation. One minute you're saying, I'm choosing peace. The next minute you're checking someone's location that they willingly shared for the 20th time today. And here's what I need you to know. That doesn't mean that you failed. It means that your nervous system found an old file. Can I free somebody today? Healing is not becoming a person who's never triggered. I don't know who started selling that idea, but I'd like a refund anytime, right now, because that's not healing. Healing isn't the absence of triggers. Healing is shortening the distance between the trigger and your awareness. Years ago, maybe you've spiraled for 3 weeks, but now maybe it's 3 days. Then it's 3 hours. Then it's 30 minutes. Then you catch yourself while you're typing the 12th paragraph text and you delete it. Progress, not perfection. Healing isn't that you never hear the protector anymore. Healing is the protector doesn't get the final vote. And here's what I think we get it wrong. Most people try to argue with themselves into healing. I shouldn't feel this way. That's irrational. I know better. Friend, your nervous system doesn't speak in lectures. It speaks in experiences. Imagine trying to convince someone they've never been burnt while they're standing there with a scar on their hand. No amount of talking changes what their body remembers. Your nervous system says, show me, not tell me. And that's why healing happens in relationship. Safe relationships, consistent relationships, repair after conflict, being loved when you make a mistake, having someone stay after a disagreement, being able to cry without someone calling you dramatic, being able to say, man, I need you, and hearing, I'm here. Those moments, they're not small. They're rewiring moments. And every time your nervous system experiences something different than what it expects, it updates the map. Slowly, because it's not overnight, but it does. So imagine you're driving home. You've driven the road 1,000 times. You know every turn, every stop sign, every shortcut. And then one day, the city builds a brand new road. It's wider, it's safer, it's faster. And now, just because the new road exists, does your GPA automatically stop taking you down the old ones? No. Why? Because that's the routine it knows. And at first, you have to be intentionally choosing the new road. It feels unfamiliar, maybe even inconvenient. You second guess yourself, but eventually, the new road becomes the default. And that's exactly how healing works. Your nervous system isn't stubborn, it's efficient. It keeps taking the same route it knows. Healing is gently teaching it that there's another way home. So let's bring it back to Maya Angelou because we got to remember where we started. When you know better, you do better. I still believe that. I absolutely believe knowledge matters. Knowledge opens the door. But I think there's another sentence, one that I wish every person healing from relational trauma could hear. And maybe it sounds something like this. When you know better, you begin noticing. When you begin noticing, you begin choosing. When you begin choosing, your nervous system slowly begins believing. And when your nervous system starts to believe, then doing better becomes possible. Because here's the truth. Knowledge changes your mind. Experiences changes your body. Relationships change your expectations. And safety changes your behavior. Maybe that's the second half of the quote. And to the women who keep asking, why am I still doing this? Can I talk to you directly? The woman who's exhausted, the woman who's frustrated with herself, the woman who's embarrassed because she thought that she'd be further along by now, the therapist who could explain attachment theory to clients but still find herself people pleasing with her own family, the woman who tells everyone else to set boundaries, then answers the phone anyway, the woman who knows and still struggles to do. I want you to hear this. Your struggle is not evident that you are weak. It's evidence that your nervous system has been practicing one way of surviving for a very, very long time. You are not trying to arrest decades of learning. You are trying to create new learning. That takes time, and time is not failure. So I want you to ask yourself one question. And that question is not, why do I keep doing this? Ask, what was this behavior trying to protect? Maybe it was protecting you from rejection. Maybe it was protecting you from shame. Maybe it was protecting you from loneliness. Or maybe it was protecting you from disappointment. But whatever it is, thank it. No, seriously, thank it. Because it got you here. Then gently tell it, I know you were trying to keep me safe, but we're not there anymore. Can you imagine speaking to yourself that way? Without criticism, without shame, not with what is wrong with me, but really with compassion. Because here's something I believe with my whole heart. Shame has never healed an attachment wound. Not one. Curiosity has. Compassion has. Safe relationships have. A lot of repair have. Consistency has. And also being seen without having to perform has. So maybe Maya Angelou was right. When we know better, we do better. But as a relational trauma therapist, I'll add one more thought. Sometimes, before we can do better, you have to feel safer. Because your brain may know the truth, but your body has to experience it. And healing is giving your body enough new experiences that one day it stops expecting abandonment and it starts expecting connection. That one day it stops preparing for rejection and starts believing that it belongs. Or that one day it stops surviving and starts living. Friend, if this episode challenged you, comforted you, or helped you to look at yourself with a little bit more compassion, would you do me a favor? Share it with someone who's been asking themselves, why am I still doing this? Because maybe they don't need another lecture. Maybe they need a different explanation. And until next time, remember this: you are not your protector. You are not your trauma. You're not your story that your nervous system had to tell to survive. You are the person who gets to write the next chapter. And that is where healing begins. I will see you next week on Rewired for Love.